Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Before I move on, I would like to say a big thank you and a big welcome to every single person who has recently subscribed. Really appreciate it, and I am grateful that you are here. I'm also grateful to you who are watching right now. And if you have not subscribed, it would be nice if you would subscribe. In this video, I would like to talk about dating neurodivergent people, whether you are a neurodivergent person or you are a neurotypical person. If you are going to engage in a relationship with a neurodivergent person, or if you're already in a relationship with a neurodivergent person, then these are some of the things that you might want to keep in mind. Take note, I am not speaking for everybody. I'm speaking from my personal experience as well as what I've learned from the experiences of other people. So this may be true for you. Some of the things I say may be true for you. Some of the things I say may not be true for you. Take everything I say with a grain of salt. First thing to know is a neurodivergent person, especially a person with maybe autism, maybe ADHD, who is eye masking, may be dating as part of their masking. So, what I mean is, in simpler terms, that person may not necessarily have reached a point in their life where they feel ready to engage in dating, or where they feel like they want to be in a relationship, where they feel that deep need, and they are engaging in relationships and dating simply because they know this is what is expected of them in society, and they're going to do it because that's how they've always operated, by doing things that they know is expected of them. And I would know I was one of those people. And the thing is, it's not as if they were to begin to unmask in that area of their life, that they would decide that they don't want to date you or they don't want to be in a relationship with you anymore. It doesn't necessarily mean that. It just means that if they were to become very aware, and if they were decide to start unmasking, they may not decide to be in a relationship with anybody at all at that point in their lives, because they just don't feel like they're ready, or they just don't feel the need to be in a relationship yet. The second thing you need to know is that neurotypical people, neurodivergent people are people primarily. Okay, whatever kind of neurotype you have, you're still a person. So we all have bad habits, we all have good habits, and sometimes we're aware of those bad habits, and sometimes we're willing to work on them. Sometimes we're not aware of those bad habits, and even if we're told about them, we may not have reached a point where we're ready to accept that we have those bad habits, let alone decide to work on them. Does that make sense? So neurodivergent people also have bad habits. That's what I'm trying to say. And sometimes part of the way part of the way that we deal with being different in the world is that we develop certain bad habits. So there are lots of neurodivergent people, lots of autistic people, I'm just going to say, who might be arrogant. They might have developed a kind of arrogance from childhood, especially when it comes to intellectual arrogance. That's a big thing. And on the other hand, we have lots of autistic people who might have developed low self-esteem, low confidence, and are trying to work on their confidence. And sometimes you can even have both in a person. The person might have very low self-esteem, might have very low confidence in some parts of their lives, but when it comes to certain parts, they might be very arrogant. And the problem with that arrogance, for people who are very arrogant, is that even if you were to tell them, they would not listen to you, because that's kind of what that arrogance demands, is that when people tell you you're wrong in certain areas, you would not want to listen. You would not want to believe that that person knows enough, or that person knows more than you, or that person gets to tell you, that another person gets to tell you that you are wrong in certain aspects of your life, or that there are certain things about you that you need to change. Okay. So it might come up as them not listening to you when you speak. Not typically, not that they're not listening to you, they are, but they're not going to listen, as in try to work on being less arrogant. Does that make sense? And this might affect a relationship, as you can imagine. It might affect a relationship negatively, and it might just cause a lot of problems. It might cause you a lot of pain. It might cause you a lot of frustration, etc. Because one of the most frustrating things in a relationship is you telling your partner certain things that makes things difficult for you as a person in a relationship, and them not willing to even believe that that's something that they do, let alone decide to work on that thing. It might make you feel unheard. It might make you feel unvalidated, and sometimes it might come across as if they're narcissistic. Okay, so that's that. So you have to look at that. Another thing that you might want to keep in mind is that just as when we have relationships with anybody you're having a relationship with, there are certain things you have to look out for. Whether it's a neurodivergent person, whether it's a neurotypical person, you have to look at compatibilities. There are certain areas of our lives in which we need to be compatible with our partner for that relationship to have a prayer of working out. And so you have to look at certain things that you're whether that person is neurodivergent or not, you have to be compatible in certain areas. Otherwise the relationship is going to be very difficult and it's not going to work out. Okay, so that comes to personal belief systems, personal faith, and especially because neurodivergent people tend to have this whole hyper focus special interest kind of thing, and in many cases a person's faith can be a special interest or something that we hyper focus on. And so if you're let's say if both of you are neurodivergent people and both of you have different faiths, for instance, and both of you have your faith as your special interest, you can imagine how there's going to be a lot of clashing, because there's going to be a lot of arguments because you believe so strongly in this thing, this person believes so strongly in this thing, and both of you want to talk about it because it's special interest, because you're so enamored with the idea, and it's just not. Do you understand? And so that's one of those things that you have to be watchful of, and that's just compatibilities when it comes to spending money, when it comes to expression of affection, when it comes to things like that. You definitely have to look at compatibilities between both of you, so that you will know if this is going to work out or if it's not going to work out. Another thing you have to keep in mind when you're dating a neurodivergent person is how they express love and how they express affection. I know I alluded to it in the last point, but I'm going to talk more on it now. And it's that the way neurodivergent people express love and affection, it tends to be a bit different from the way neurotypical people express love and affection. And that's something we have to keep in mind. The fact that you're with a neurodivergent person, or that your crush is a neurodivergent person, and you don't know if they like you back because they behave in certain ways that you're not used to, or the ways they behave towards you are ways that you would read as them not caring about you or not being attracted to you in any way, does not necessarily mean that you're right. It doesn't mean that person doesn't have a crush on you back, or that that person isn't attracted to you. It just means that there's a lot of miscommunication and misreading, which is a theme with autistic people. And so you have to keep in mind that neurodivergent people express themselves differently. And so you may be reading things and maybe reading meanings into things that may not necessarily be true or correct. You have to, find more clarity on things for you to be certain of how they feel about you. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to just ask. Okay, is to just ask. Or, there are other body language signs that you might read, but you may not necessarily expect them to be very forthcoming with words without being prompted. You may not expect them, like neurodivergent people, to be very forthcoming with touching and things of that sort. Wanting to go on dates, you might ask somebody out on a date and they may not respond positively for many reasons. It may be that they don't even understand that you're asking them out on a date. It may be that the time you're talking about doesn't work for them. It may be that the place you're talking about doesn't work for them. It may be a lot of things. It doesn't mean that if you were to talk about a different time, a different place, that they would not want to go with you. It may not mean that if you were to ask them and let them know that it's actually a date, that they would not want to go on a date with you. But their mind is just not going there, right? You might be flirting with them and they may not flirt back, or they may be flirting in a way that you don't know is flirting, and there's just a lot of miscommunication, and you have to put that in mind. Okay, another thing to keep in mind, this is going to be the last thing I'll talk about in this video. Another thing to keep in mind when dating a neurodivergent person is, or when you're interested in a neurodivergent person, is sex and sexuality. And in general, without going into too many details, for a lot of neurodivergent people, people with autism or with ADHD or AuDHD, as is my case, we tend to have varying identities when it comes to sexuality. Let's just put it that way. And for many of us, especially when we're high masking and we've not had a chance to get in touch with certain parts of ourselves, our feelings, our emotions, things that we like, we've not known for a very long time. It might take a long time into adulthood before we begin to figure those things out. Things that maybe neurotypical people might have been figuring out since they were maybe teenagers. We might actually get into our 20s, our late 20s, our 30s before we even or even farther than that, before we even begin to figure out what our sexuality is. But the thing is, we may not be aroused like other people might be. We may not know that what we're attracted to early on, the way other people know what they're attracted to quickly. And even when we feel a kind of attraction for certain people, we may not know what kind of attraction it is. It may be sexual attraction, it may not be sexual attraction. So those are some of the things to keep in mind. And if it's, if it's not sexual attraction, then depending on the kind of relationship you're expecting, if you're wanting a relationship that also incorporates that part, that aspect in the relationship, then it might become difficult for you, because if somebody is not sexually attracted to you, it doesn't necessarily mean that they cannot be intimate with you in that way. It just means that it might take a bit of time and investment and effort before they, you know, want to do that with you, and you might need them to be more. You might not know if they're actually, if they understand what is going on. I mean, obviously they understand because they're adults, but if they really, knowing something is different from knowing something, right? So that's one of those things you have to keep in mind. In addition to that, engaging in the act itself is a bit of it's something you have to also keep in mind, because engaging in the act itself is something that with neurodivergent people you have to, first of all, you have to make sure you talk about it. And I don't just mean, obviously with everybody you have to talk about it, and you have to be sure that everybody is willing and able and everybody understands what's going on. But more than that, with neurotypical people, neurodivergent people, you have to you have to talk about it. Like, you have to really discuss it and talk about things that that person can do, the kinds of things that they are comfortable doing because of sensory issues, things of that sort. Some people like a certain type of touch, they get turned off instantly with a certain kind of touch, because of smells, because of all sorts of things. It's just, it can be an overwhelming experience for a lot of neurodivergent people. So you do have to talk about it. In general, in society, there's this idea that if you talk about the intimate act beforehand, then it kind of kills the spontaneity and it kills the sexiness of it. And if you're talking about it, then it's not very sexy. I heard once when a guy was on a date with a girl, and he said that at the end of the date he wasn't sure if he was supposed to give her a kiss or not, and so he asked, and the girl spoke to him a certain way, and she made him feel ashamed for asking, because asking if it was okay for him to give her a kiss was not sexy. I believe that kind of rhetoric. You're not supposed to ask, you're just supposed to do it. First of all, if you're dealing with a neurodivergent person, please, I'm begging you, ask. First of all, please, I'm begging you, ask. It is not sexy. It's important. Second of all, you need to talk about it, because what can be more not sexy than talking about it before is going along, getting into it and really getting into it, and then doing something that will destroy the mood instantly in the middle. That's a lot more unsexy than talking about it before. Okay, and with a neurodivergent person, it's very, very likely that you may do something. If you don't talk about it, you may do something that will kill the mood somewhere in the middle. You may touch them somewhere, you may give them a kind of touch, you may, just do something or ask for something, and it'll just turn them off instantly. So I'm just going to stop here. Thank you so much for listening. Let me know if there's anything you would like to add or subtract in the comment section below. I would love to read your thoughts. And I just want to say once more, thank you so much for being here and thank you for subscribing. And I will see you next time.